Hello there and welcome in live to Studio A. This is the Bulldog Sports Report, and my name is Guy Haberman. A lot of stuff to cover today. Some breaking news from men's basketball. We'll also talk a little bit NFL draft and some of the Bulldogs that we may see there, and also Bob Fraley. Coach Bob Fraley will join us on the program. But first, let's talk about this breaking news. The university held a press conference today. Steve Cleveland was there. A representative from the NC2A Sanctions Committee was there to talk about what these long-awaited sanctions would be, and eventually it came down. 4 years probation. The NCAA accepted the university's self-imposed sanctions from last year, which was 1 year probation and a 1 year postseason ban. So tack on an additional 3 years. Fresno State basketball, men's basketball, will be under probation until 2010. Also, the NCAA actually commended Fresno State for their handling of the situations. They commended President Welty and they commended the athletic department and Thomas Bay. So we'll talk a little bit later on with our panel, perhaps Steve Cleveland, the right move, and how the NCAA looked upon that decision to bring him in. Of course, those sanctions coming after Ray Lopes made 457 phone calls that were deemed to be violations by the NCAA. Ray Lopes, of course, no longer the coach at Fresno State. He, along with a good majority of that athletic department, at least some of the athletic department, the athletic director, Scott Johnson, have since left the university. Also, some implications for Ray Lopes. We'll talk about that a little later in the program. Now, our panel, Darrell, Copeland, Maggie, Thach, and Marcel, Bourdase. I know we had planned to lead off here with the NFL draft and football, but basketball had their press conference earlier today announcing the NCAA sanctions. No scholarships, as I understand it, will be taken away. 3 additional years probation, so make it 4, counting the self-imposed probation from last year. No postseason ban. So, okay, no scholarships are taken away. There's no postseason ban. What is the punishment then? What is
anything that happens from during the time of probation? If another sanction were to occur, then it's going to be really serious. I mean, it's going to be close to the death penalty. I don't know about death penalty. They were in the phone conference that they had today. They were really turn-off-ish about the death penalty, but it would be something close to that if it happens again in that 4-year period.
I think it's win, and more winning. I mean, last season they had the self-imposed bans, and you're looking, the players had to suffer, some of which were here and probably were, we don't know if they received some of those illegal phone calls. Right. But it really was sad that they had to miss out on the postseason. But at the end of the day, they get to play in the postseason next year, and they don't have any future scholarships revoked. As far as the death penalty, though, I don't think we're going to see the death penalty again, just because of how bad it hurt SMU, and it's just one of those things that they'll take scholarships away, they'll take postseason play away, but the death penalty is just too harsh.
But it seems to me that the NCAA, when it comes down to it, I mean, if they needed to give the death penalty, obviously that's not what's happening in this situation, but sometimes it seems like the NCAA, it's not about feelings, right? I mean, they just want to, they're going to punish you if you deserve to be punished. So are you surprised, Maggie, with what came down today?
I'm really not surprised. I really think the NCAA was really impressed with how Fresno State in itself was able to punish itself and go through these self-imposed bans. So really it's a best case scenario, and it's almost kind of a little reward, like here's what you get for complying. Here's what can happen if you comply. Best case scenario can happen. We
should mention that the violations we're talking about occurred under Ray Lopes, actually directly related to Ray Lopes. And from what I understand, they were only discovered because of investigations they were conducting at Oklahoma when Ray Lopes was an assistant there. Of course, Kelvin Sampson has since left, and they're still looking into sanctions for Oklahoma. How prevalent is this in NCAA basketball?
It's prevalent. I mean, talking with Betsy Mosier, who is in charge of compliance and integrity of the program of every athletic sport at Fresno State, she said that every single school reports about 15 to 20 secondary violations a year. So it's not so much those that they're worried about, it's the major ones. Right. And they're just going to have to keep doing well, I guess not keep doing a good job, but, do a job, do some kind of job to make it a good job. Right. From here on out, because, they're really vulnerable.
How big of a role did hiring Steve Cleveland play in the NCAA's decision?
I think it had a huge factor because Steve Cleveland has a proven record of complying, and when he was at BYU, a lot of his players were doing well, 3.0 average in the Mountain West Conference. He has a good proven track record that he can follow the rules, and he can excel under the rules. So I think that was a huge factor for the NCAA.
I think it was a big deal. I mean, Steve Cleveland, he came in here. He was the dark horse, and you know, I gave you a hard time about Vance Wahlberg last week, but you know, I think he stole the job from Wahlberg at the end of the day. I mean,
do you mean that literally?
Well, I don't know if he actually, you know, came in and took it from his pocket, but you know, I think that it was Wahlberg's job up until Cleveland entered the race, and with everything that he brought to the table at BYU with his academic standards and the fact that he brought them here so far to Fresno State and had no problems this year, I think, you know, with Thomas Bay as well, it made the major factor.
Well, we saw Vance Wahlberg out of Fresno City, recently hired at Pepperdine. With all the cloud that was hanging over the university at the time, I mean, now we can look back and say, wow, maybe the decision to hire Steve Cleveland, at least for those, you know, Wahlberg files, maybe that decision looks a little better now. Was it that close to being Vance Wahlberg at the time, you think?
I think the entire time they were really looking for someone like Steve Cleveland, who has a proven track record, you know, over a course of 9 or 10 years of being clean. When you hire Vance Wahlberg, you're running the same risk that you're with hiring Ray Lopes, another assistant coach, or, you know, even lower junior college coach. So by hiring Cleveland, you're showing that you're really going after trying to comply with the rules.
Okay, so they hire Steve Cleveland. They showed the NCAA that they're trying to comply. So now the big thing is, can we win? You wrote a couple weeks ago that you thought Fresno State had a chance to be next season's George Mason, who, by the way, made a run to the Final Four. We know now, at least as far as the rules go, I mean, that's theoretically possible, but is it possible? Defend yourself here.
Here's what I'm going to say. If you read the column that I wrote, it says that the schools are similar in the fact that, you know, there's really no big man to speak of. There's a lot of athletic talent, and put in the right situation, team chemistry, you know, you have enough depth that they can make a run late in the season without having blown away the other teams during the regular season.
Right.
So it's just a scenario where they match up well, and it's a similar case to what they did this
Don't
year.
get me wrong. I like it because when you write that article, now you're on record if they actually do make the tournament saying, I called this a year ago. I mean,
and if not, it was bold.
He was just
it was
building,
optimistic.
He was building. I just remember a couple when we first started. You know, I was predicting Sweet 16, and,
Yeah,
and he was already giving me a hard time. That's a bold statement at the time. But
well, now
hey, Sweet 16, I think that they could be a possible Elite Eight. Final Four, it's going to take a big win against the Square of Connecticut to get.
I'm not going to make any. I'm not making predictions. I'm just saying if it happens,
You're just pointing out the similarities.
They're very similar. So if it happens, you can't be too surprised because they match up.
Okay,
well.
so he made predictions. Maggie,
Yeah.
now that Fresno State can play in the WAC tournament,
Right.
they can make the NC2A tournament.
Yeah.
He says he said Elite Eight.
Right. Both of these guys are predicting, but mind you, we do have to make the tournament first. But no, it's just really optimistic that we get to compete and that we have, you know, we have this year of experience, and we head into next season with already having beat Nevada, already having beat some tough teams, having some, you know, tough wins on the road too. I mean, that plays a huge role in how we will, you know, head into next year.
And everybody coming back, plus Dominic McGuire. All right, well, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you back here next week on the Bulldog Sports Report.
No shot there.